Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about MicroStrategy. The stock is trading just above $1,000, about $1,000 for the stock. And, I get in my comment section, sometimes people tell me they don't understand why I cover MicroStrategy or Bitcoin or Tesla. And some people just like value growth style investing. I just cover alpha on this channel. And I just cover whatever I think is going to do well, whatever I think is going to be the best investments is what I tried to cover. And not all companies are going to be straightforward with income statements, high growth. Some of them are going to be more complicated stories. In the case of MicroStrategy and in the case of Bitcoin, if you've been following the channel for a long time, I consider Bitcoin to be my bond alternative. I don't own a single bond because I don't believe in counterparty risk. So therefore, I own BTC as an alternative to bonds, and of course, with the rise of MicroStrategy recently, MicroStrategy has been one of the top stocks that I own because it kind of did a 5x on me, and I think it's going to keep going, and I am buying at $1,000 because this MicroStrategy story is developing. And I am loving so much about what I see about this stock. So let me get started with this video. So first of all, why do I talk about Bitcoin? Why do I talk about MicroStrategy? Because I believe in Bitcoin, and I think this is the currency of the future, the currency of the internet. And of course, to get to that realization, you need to spend at least 100 hours studying Bitcoin, right? Otherwise, you're just going to dismiss it quickly in the comment section. The Bitcoin standard is a good start, but you can watch a number of interviews online, and if you watch 100 hours of interviews on Bitcoin, you'll probably get an idea of what this asset is. Another point to buy MicroStrategy and Bitcoin in general, but that's true for anybody who wants to have high returns, is you need to be comfortable with volatility. A stock or an asset that is going to give you 100 times your money within a reasonable period of time, let's say a 20-year period of time, right? So that would be a life-changing return, like say 100x in 20 years is a life-changing return. To get a 100 bagger, you need to be very comfortable with volatility and not break a sweat whenever you see it, because a stock that's going to do 100 times, you're going to have maybe a dozen minus 80% drawdowns, maybe a dozen, and you need to be perfectly comfortable with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Bitcoin was at 15,000 2 years ago. I didn't care. I was just stacking, and you need to be comfortable taking with philosophy. Just smile. Just even joke about it. I see people joking about it on Twitter. I remember a tweet when Bitcoin at 15,000. You had like a very old OG of Bitcoin. It was like, hey, it could go to 10,000. Well, yeah. It could have gone to 10,000. You gotta be okay with the drawdowns, and you can only be okay with the drawdowns if you understand what you own and if you understand the asset. And the last thing that is required, I would argue, to own a company like MicroStrategy and Bitcoin is an ability to think for thyself. So you gotta think for yourself. You gotta think on your own without of course. We could get into philosophy and say, is any thought truly original? But you got to get out of your way to just think on your own. And like in my case on this channel, I've told my Bitcoin story before. I sold all of my Bitcoin for $250 a coin, anyways, it's a very philosophical learning when you do a mistake like this. Like I said, it's something that I share with people who sold Netflix at $7 and thought they were real smart. That right there was the last time I listened to the experts. You don't listen to the experts. Is what I don't do, right? I listen to myself, and so when I tell you things like, is Bitcoin going to head to $1 million coin? Do I believe that? Yes, I believe Bitcoin is going to be headed to $1 million coin. But, it's easy to look at stock to flow model and look at thought processes of others and say, oh, well, they come to that conclusion. They must be right. They seem real smart. Like me, I have to come up to this conclusion on my own. And my thinking sometimes is very simple. I follow Occam's razor. Whenever whenever you have something simple, you're probably closer to the truth. And I have a very simple conservative vision for Bitcoin, which is the demand is roughly constant. Bitcoin is a brand. It is like Coca-Cola. It's a brand. People like it very much. It's like the US dollar too. The US dollar is a brand. Bitcoin's a brand, and I'm assuming because of the viral networked nature of a cultural movement like Bitcoin, I'm assuming Bitcoin is gonna stay popular. Obviously I'm being conservative. Bitcoin is likely gonna get way more popular, but assuming it stays as popular as it is today in 20 years, assuming that, I'm assuming the demand is gonna stay roughly constant, and of course this is very conservative because you may say the ETFs are coming, the asset managers, and you would be right? But I'm trying to be as conservative and as simple as I can. Bitcoin's a brand. The brand is here to stay. People are going to live with Bitcoin within the next decades, and it's going to be a topic of debate, and it's going to keep being a topic of debate. We're past bubble territory, right? The tulip mania of the 1600s in the Netherlands, we've outlasted that by a long shot, right? Bubbles don't last 15 years. So anyways, that's point number one. And then I look at things like price on halving day. The price on halving day was 65,000. And so we had the halving. New Bitcoin being issued dropped in half, right? And thus, I take 65,000 and I'm like, okay, well, assuming the demand is going to stay constant, my prediction for 2028 is double that, because we've cut in half the number of Bitcoins. So obviously the price is going to double because there's twice as few Bitcoins. So I take 65 and I say, it's going to double and it's going to go to 130K. That makes a lot of sense to me because I'm assuming the demand stays constant, but you're cutting the supply in half, thus the price doubles. And of course, in 2028, so that will be by the halving in 2028, 130, and then we have the halving again, and then you double again because the halving cuts the supply in half again. So when it goes to 260, then 2036 it cuts again in half, so 520, and then it cuts again in half, so 1.04 million. So really simply in my mind, I get to 1 million a coin by 2040, and of course this is way too conservative. This is so conservative it even feels silly to write about it, because we know in Bitcoin about all of the other mechanisms and processes that go into play. For example, people losing their Bitcoins. Another example would be the ETFs coming. Another example would be a game theory plays and how the adoption is going to be precipitated by people seeing their neighbors buying Bitcoin and saying, I have to beat my Bitcoin to get in to my neighbors to getting some Bitcoin. We know all of these processes that are likely going to increase the demand. If you follow Bitcoin, if you follow this space, if you follow this book, you know that there's another field of study in Bitcoin that entirely agrees with gold, which is the idea that money is getting devalued, right? So much of that growth, actually, my calculation assumes no drop in the value of the US dollar, and this is an area where Bitcoiners and gold people really get along on, which is we all agree that the US dollar is going down. We all agree that the US dollar is going to lose a bunch of value, and so what that means is that that's probably equivalent. It's probably going to be 2040, $1 million equivalent purchasing power of today. It likely will be much more in actual number, right? Written on your screen in actual nominal amount. It might be much more. But anyways, that is what I think. No investment advice, no financial advice. It is just my belief. So now that we got that assumption out of the way, I guess I'm divulging some personal information. So I guess right here I'll be 51 in 2040. So I mean, this is like at 51, you're still living your best life, right? It's not that long of it's really not that long of a time to wait all of this to go to 1 million. I promise you, 15, 16 years is really not that much time. And I don't do leverage or on Bitcoin or MicroStrategy, right? And my job covers my expenses, and my expenses are kept to a minimum. So it's like there's really a no-brainer to me. me, this is an opportunity like nobody would believe, right? So I believe that the asset is going to go up by tremendous amounts in the future. And I am looking at a stock now that owns that asset where the owner is, and that's a good word, that's a compliment here, but the owner of MicroStrategy is a fanatic, he's a maximalist, he's a Bitcoin fanatic, so we know he's going to keep buying Bitcoin for the foreseeable future, and we know he's going to buy more Bitcoin per share. He's going to maximize the number of Bitcoin per share. And we also know that the market kind of throws around the stock like a ball, like it's like they're playing a game with this stock, just punching it up and down. If you get, to just put an analogy out there. So if you look at the stock since the drop, right? Since the all-time high, roughly, at least in the market, the stock stops trading on Friday. Since March 27, which was roughly the all-time high for MicroStrategy stock, until today, the stock dropped 47%, so nearly cut in half. But the price of Bitcoin only went down over that exact same period 18%. So the multiplier here is minus 2.6 times. That's the multiplier on the downside. The stock dropped 2.6 times faster than the underlying asset, which is the Bitcoin. And of course, given my little prediction here and what I think is going to happen to Bitcoin, are we going to have a multiplier similar to this over the long run, right? Are we going to get a 2x multiplier to the upside? Well, it seems to be the case. I think 2 to 3 is roughly going to be the case for MicroStrategy compared to the Bitcoin, and that's going to be the upside or the downside, and I think that's greatly going to play in our favor. So that's one part of the equation. Now, getting to the meat of the video here is MicroStrategy, when I look at it, is getting pretty close to trading near net asset value, i.e. the premium is close to gone if you really think about it. And keep in mind, this was a stock when I covered it about a month ago. It was trading at a 2 times premium, right? 100% premium. Today, the premium is nearing gone. So for the sake of simplicity, let's assume the following thing, which is a rough assumption, but I think it's fair. Let's assume for the sake of simplicity that the debt servicing on the bonds that are outstanding from MicroStrategy, let's assume that debt is serviced by the cash flows of the software business. And let's also assume that as those bonds mature, MicroStrategy has some debt that they issued to acquire Bitcoin. As the bonds mature, let's assume that by then the interest rates will be down and we'll be back to a zero interest rate environment. I'm talking 2029, right? 2030. And when that happens, they will be rolled over at similar interest rates. And so if we assume both things, then we can take that part of the equation and just focus on MicroStrategy, the company, the asset itself. So once we get out of the way, we have a simple analysis where MicroStrategy has 16.96 million shares outstanding at $1,010 each. That's 17.13 billion in market cap right now, today, as of the moment I'm making that video. Now, I'm also assuming that software business is worth about $1 billion. I think that's a fair value according to the cash flows. Some people could assume it's actually worth much more because they're getting into AI and they're launching Power AI, MicroStrategy AI. Some people could argue it's worth more. I'm arguing it's worth $1 billion for the software business. It's a business that has survived many competitors. The business is still there. Granted, without Bitcoin, wouldn't be interested in that business, but it's still a software business, right? It still has value, and the number of Bitcoin they own is 214,400. So assuming a price of $75,000, and we were almost there a month ago. Well, then in that case, 17.08 billion would be the value of the company. And right now the market cap is 17.1. So you are paying fair value for MicroStrategy if you assume Bitcoin is 75K. Right? So, and if you have low time preference, if you're a long-term oriented person, in your mind, Bitcoin's already there, already way past there. So of course, if you think about it this way, that's already fair value. If you think about it closer to today, right? Roughly, if you take a few day period, Bitcoin is trading between 65 and 55,000, roughly. I believe before recording this video, it was at 58-ish, and so anyways, it's trading right now. If you look at the Bitcoin price right now, where it's between a 17% and a 33% premium is what MicroStrategy is trading at. Between a 17% and a 33% premium. And of course, the point here is that the premium is slowly going away. We'll see if we get to actual fair value in the next few days. But the question, obviously, is shouldn't we get a premium for having Michael Saylor manage our money? You know, Michael Saylor has become synonymous with Bitcoin. You know, just like JP Morgan became synonymous with banking. Right? Just like Carnegie became synonymous with steel. Just like Rockefeller became synonymous with oil, or Ford became synonymous with the automobile. If you think of Bitcoin, most people in the corporate world, they're going to think about Michael Saylor. He's become a synonymous to that. Shouldn't that get a premium, right? Because Elon Musk becomes synonymous with electric cars, and Tesla surely has a premium. Whenever I post a Tesla video, I get reminded all the time about how Tesla is supposedly expensive. Berkshire definitely gets a premium. Whenever I look at Berkshire, I have a really, really hard time understanding how that company is trading at such a high premium compared to the number of legacy businesses in dying industry that there is in Berkshire. And perhaps the best example of a majority owner or a premium because of a name, the best example of that is the ticker symbol DJT, which is a company that doesn't have many assets. Much of the value of a company of the stock DJT can be solely explained by the Trump name. That's the only reason why this stock is trading so high. At least if you compare it to the assets that they hold, and sure enough, many would be quick to point out that the same is true for, say, a company like Tesla. But you know, I don't think so. There is a premium oftentimes attached to their name. You know, you can make that same analysis, that same comparison to, say, a name like Taylor Swift, for example. There is a premium attached to these names. Michael Saylor has a name in Bitcoin, and this is this is not priced into the stock. And of course, and I will conclude with a more fair point, I believe, or at least a more traditional finance point argument. So point number one was, where's the premium at given to Michael Saylor? No premium for his astute management. His astute management seems to be getting no premium. Point number two is, of course, where's the present value of future cash flows? You know, you go to business school, if you learn things like the CAPM, you know, what Buffett always says, as long as we teach MBAs, the CAPM will remain rich, or something like that. Well, we still teach things also like the present value of future cash flows, which is something that is taught in business schools around the world. Well, I would argue that the present value of future cash flows is totally not priced in, because MicroStrategy is more than just a Bitcoin ETF. It's more than just a Bitcoin ETF, because it's going to be able to do things as an operating company that an ETF or an investment company or a fund of any kind could not do. And even if we were to get like a leveraged Bitcoin fund, where like let's say a 2x, let's say you had a 2x Bitcoin ETF, which is not unreasonable to assume that will exist at some point in the future, like even that will never ever achieve the same level as say a MicroStrategy, because Bitcoin, as Saylor describes it, is like the granite under the city of Manhattan, and we see this very clearly with the future applications of Bitcoin, which are coming to life. So, what are some of those applications? The point I'm trying to make is that when you have 214,000 Bitcoins, you're going to be able to earn a yield on that Bitcoin, you know, very similar to an insurance company with, I don't know, $1.5–2 trillion worth of float, and that's the difference between the premiums and the payouts for insurance. They take that float and they invest it. MicroStrategy is going to be able to do the same and earn a yield on its Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the endowment of MicroStrategy. And this endowment not only goes up in value, but you also are going to be able to earn yield on that endowment. And when that happens, I believe a lot of the market will be able to analyze MicroStrategy through regular lens of analysis. And this is the way they're headed. So what can they do? They can stake Bitcoin on layer 2, and maybe you can partner with a bank and well, that's for liquidity and exchange. No, but you can create layer 2 Bitcoin, right? So you could create, and maybe it's Lightning, but it wouldn't have to be Lightning. Like MicroStrategy could create its own software where you can own a share of the MicroStrategy Bitcoin, and then they would just earn money on the transaction fees and on the oscillation of the money changing hands from one hand to another. Then what else could you do? You could lend your Bitcoin to an exchange for liquidity and earning yield, right? You could do a USDC BTC pair, and you could earn yield on that pair, and that's something that they also may do. You could use Bitcoin as a collateral to buy more Bitcoin. This is something that MicroStrategy has already done, and they might keep going. You could use your constant bid, your idea that you're always going to be buying Bitcoin, to write call option, to write promises to purchase Bitcoin from someone in the future. And you could even do, and this is something that I got pushback in my comments the last video, you could even do pure Bitcoin loans, right? Once the technology is gonna be there, once it's gonna be safe, I don't see any reason why MicroStrategy couldn't do full reserve loans, right? You could do a full reserve as opposed to fractional reserve banking for banks with dollars. They don't own the dollars. You could imagine a BTC bank being full reserve and actually MicroStrategy lending some of that Bitcoin against, say, a business collateral, and then you get the business if the investment fails. And you could assume them underwriting things like that. So of course, there's so much uncertainty. We don't know if any of this is going to happen, but we know that they've begun working on these things. MicroStrategy has mentioned multiple times its rewards for employees, its Bitcoin rewards for employees. But we also know that their engineers are working on Lightning. This is from their 2023 conference. I'm curious to see what comes out of the MicroStrategy World Conference that they have right now. But this is a company that has 2,000 people, many engineers who are going to be working on solutions where you can potentially earn a yield. And also, I love, and I'll conclude with this, I love that MicroStrategy is getting into AI. There was a very insightful presentation from ARK Invest about a few months ago talking about how AIs will need to be exchanging value in the future and why Bitcoin is the most ideal unit of value for an AI to exchange value. And Michael Saylor has also pointed out that idea many times, where he says, if you send a direct message on Twitter, there should be a collateral. You should give some money, or whenever you send an email, there should be a cost associated with it. And if there's a cost associated with it, you solve spam. And this is all things that can be unlocked through micro transactions. And that's a field that we're seeing in Web3, that is developing in Web3. MicroStrategy could have a role in this microtransaction world that's going to be AI and AI enabled. And of course, it's all about the velocity of the money and how quickly the money changes hands. And this is something that they could be working on. So I don't know how big the future cash flows are going to be, right? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be zero. And clearly, none of this, in my view, is priced into the stock. And so I'm pounding the table on MicroStrategy at $1,000 a share. I am buying right now. I find it cheap. I'm selling stuff. So this was not investment advice, no financial advice. This is just entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.